Are you from rival schools? Is that what I'm picking up? Like you, Purdue? No, you
We're
both went to
from the
Purdue.
same school.
You're from the same
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So when did you graduate last, Shaun?
For the third time?
Yeah, the final time. When was the last time you were in school on campus?
2007, and in the winter. So I graduated like December 07.
Bummer. We had no overlap.
No overlap. Well, you know.
No. Because like part of me has always thought like, like what a fun thing it would have been if I was like this dumb freshman like walking around on campus with my backpack and like I accidentally bumped into you. You're like, goddamn idiot!
I imagine
Out
Shaun
of my way.
Yeah.
I imagine Shaun in an actual lab coat, doing rocket science or whatever. Like,
it's funny. I never wore a lab coat. That was never my thing.
Man, you actually have the most opportunity of anyone to actually wear a lab coat, and you're squandering it, man. You're squandering it.
I know. Squandering a great opportunity.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, are all of the rumors about the nuclear engineering program on campus real? Do we have a secret reactor under the Memorial Mall?
I don't think so. I don't know how. Are we live? Is this being recorded?
We're live. We're live right now.
No,
this is going to be a weird show, I promise.
Yeah.
There is a reactor on campus, but it's not under the fountain. It's in the Double E building, in the basement.
Or maybe it's there's something under the Memorial Mall that I heard a rumor that was there, or like a particle collider or something.
I heard that, but I've never seen it. I can neither confirm nor deny that there is an accelerator under the Memorial Mall.
Yeah, I knew we had a reactor, and I heard a rumor that like it can only power a hairdryer or something like that, and I was like, that seems odd.
It can't even power a hairdryer, to be clear, but I feel like that's the detail.
So it is, of course, this is RantCast 71. We're talking about Ossiarch Bonereapers here, getting a little retrospective in there. I am, of course, the magical Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. I'm joined tonight by the Lord of Death himself, Brendan, up there, and a doctor of many strange and wild things, Shaun. He is from that land where the monsters lie, Detroit. How's it going tonight, gentlemen?
Detroit.
Going great. Basketball. Yeah. It's good. Good to be on a Friday. Good to hang out, talk some Warhammer. Excited about it.
Right on. So we're going to be doing... what was that?
No, I finished putting him on my base. I just wanted to show Kyle the 11th more gas, which means 11. That I have the most gas. I've got the 12th one over here in paint. But hello.
Amazing.
To the mostest gassed.
I have 6 painted and based. So you definitely have the most gas.
I have
amateur.
I have 4 painted and based, and I have 4 more, like unassembled on the sprue. That feels like the most. That feels like too many gasts.
Yeah, it does. It does. I ran a list with 4, and I kind of liked it, but more than that seems just like madness.
Yeah, madness.
The last time I had 4, I summoned him on for 400 points as playing my Nagash list.
Right on.
There you go.
Right
I used to play 4
a while ago.
That was good fun. You could ambush them off the back of the board. I like that.
Yeah. We actually talked about that a little bit during the LON episode, where I think that Morghast do have some play in Legion of Night because of that, and you can usually set up their babysitter because they do need something like I don't know, even if it's just like a Cairn Wraith to project a death save.
Yeah.
So, real quick, Minimum Pants dropping 1,000 RDP right off the back to remind everyone that checking ain't nothing to mess with. I guess I don't think either of my guests really need much of an introduction. If you've watched RantCast before, both of these gentlemen have been on. I know you were on with the Rantathon during the Doctor's Block there, Shaun. Both super accomplished death players in their area, often going head-to-head kind of throughout our tournament process. So really battle-hardened veterans of various death factions, and lately we've all kind of been in love with, obviously, everyone's favorite Bone Daddies, the Ossiarch Bonereapers. I guess we'll start with... I just want to ask you, Shaun, why death? Why gravitate towards death? Wait, no, hang on, real quick. Brendan, you already did this show on Warhammer Weekly, so what we're really going to talk about is Skaven.
Yes, Skaven.
That's correct.
No, but surprise Skaven episode, just like Nagash would
hang up real quick.
Yeah, hangs up. Click. No. So why Death, Shaun? Why do you gravitate towards the Death factions, and why specifically Ossiarch Bonereapers, sort of in the?
Stay a while and listen.
Yeah, I mean, I got into Death back in 8th edition. I started with Tomb Kings back in 8th edition. I played Bretonnians mostly, and then I kind of got bored with them, and then picked up Tomb Kings and just loved the army, the lore, and everything. And then 8th edition, as we know, went away and gave way to Age of Sigmar. And at the first Adepticon, I think the first AOS Adepticon, they played some very strange comp system, and Nagash was completely broken, like worse than he's ever been broken in Warhammer history. He was like 600 points, could bring on an extra 1,000 for free. I mean, it was mental. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go buy that dude. And yeah, and kind of just, and then Tomb Kings, of course, we know were awesome in AOS for the first like year and a half. So just kind of fell in love with the faction on the table.
So
but it all started with
that snake list you had with Jake for that doubles was just bonkers.
That I still maintain that's one of the grossest lists in AOS history. 12 snakes and 12 skyflyers in a doubles event. It's disgusting. Disgusting. So we came second in that event to 1 sports point to those who shall not be named. But I see one of them in the chat.
Aside from that, they shouldn't have even won the game that would have put them in the place to beat you.
So you're right. So it's your fault. It's your fault that Jake and I.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'd like to formally apologize on air for not winning that trophy ahead of you, so that you and Jake could sit there and say, who the hell are these two guys that we've never seen before? And then Domus and Brad would be like, they beat us in the second round. There's some sort of like magical Warhammer ringers, and then like history changes.
All of history changes, yeah, like the entirety.
I have a hammer.
I think Jake and I would have picked you on sports. A hammer? Like, is that? Wait, what's that? Like one of those?
Yeah. Where's mine?
My whole personality would have been out the window.
Over here.
Just.
Oh my! What's that on the shelf, Meph? What is that?
Oh yeah, I've got a hammer back over here. Yeah, like there.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one, but it's different.
What are we, 5 minutes in?
The hammer shade already comes out. He does have the. All right, so Ossiarch Bonereapers then, like.
Anyway, so I've been playing Death for a while, and then I played all the Deaths. I must have like 15,000 points painted or something like that. And then I kind of got off Death for a while, got kind of bored with Legions, just playing skeletons, and it was kind of boring. So I kind of played Sylvaneth for a while. I played Skaven for a little while, and then now I'm back on it with OBR. I love the kind of the martial feel of the army, the catapults, the cavalry. Catacross is just an absolute boss. So I love the army on the table. So.
Yeah, that's my read too. Is it really does feel like you're playing that sort of martial thinking army. Like I really enjoy that aspect. This is a combat army that rewards the thought process of like a tactician. I think I've asked you this before, Brendan, but treat every episode like it's someone's first episode. Why Death for you, man? Why do we have 10 going on 20,000 points of Death in these cases behind you?
So for me, I first started playing Death in 8th edition, and I started collecting a Vampire Counts army. And at the time, I was still in high school and working off of, like what little I had. And I was like $500 into the army, and I had like 400 points. And I was like, this is not working. We're like, I kept it all cool. AOS, tipped over from 8th edition. Time had passed, and you know that because I have facial hair now. And I had a real job where I made real money doing real adult things. And I finally got the chance to play, these armies. And the thing that really tipped it forward for me was I had collected a bunch of this stuff. I had bought some stuff when the Flesh Eater book came out, and I had bought an Arcan because he was a really cool looking model. And then I went to Armies on Parade with my Ogre army, and I didn't get any. I think I got one vote I think it was my girlfriend at the time, and voted for my army. It's very nice of her. And I was like, that's bullshit. I can do way better than this. And so I spite painted thousands of points of death, and in the interim, started playing, and I won first place that year. But that's the reason I have all of this. But when I wanted to start playing Death, I had just come back from Adepticon 2017, where I had been playing Sylvaneth, and I was starting to get introduced to the Age of Sigmar community on Twitter and stuff like that. And there was this guy, Tony Moore, who was playing this Nagash list, and I was like, that's really cool. He's a really cool model. Everyone tells me he's garbage. And so I started tooling around with that list, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I get what he's doing. I like this. And so I refined it, and I played a bunch of games, and then I went to a couple tournaments, and I did well with it, and I was like, this faction, the way it plays, aside from it looking cool, fits the way that I like to approach Warhammer. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, Legions came out, and then 2.0 came out, and then I stole Shaun's Flesh Eater Courts list so that I could win ATC, and then Bonereapers came out after I stole Brad's list, but it wasn't Brad's list. It's different. It's not Brad's list. It was the same, but different.
Right.
Right. So then Bonereapers came out, and Meph, you and I were sitting on that bed in West Lafayette coming back from NashCon, and we were watching that video and freaking out, and I just bought a whole cohort of Bonereapers, and I'm almost done painting all of it.
Yeah, I accidentally made I went home and accidentally made a podcast that week. Yeah. Go on.
But what Shaun's talking about in the play style is absolutely just the coolest thing about this army, aside from the way the aesthetic is really cool, and the way the army looks all together is really cool. But for me, the way that it plays is just exactly what I want. It is so... You have to be so strategic in all of your choices to get the wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from a list construction standpoint, this, unlike, something like a Skaven or like a Cities of Sigmar or some of these other sort of toolbox armies, you kind of have avenue you get to build down, but since everything costs 200 points, you can't really, it becomes really difficult to have harvesters and catapults and also, bring in a catacross. You kind of have to chop something to really and then lean into that strategy from the list building phase even. And I think that's become even more apparent with the Petrifex Elite adjustment. I won't say nerf.
Which was correct and proper.
Right.
Your lawyers told you to say that.
I'm under advisement by my lawyers that I must continue to say that this was the correct and appropriate change. It was well deserved.
That's right.
Somewhere out there.
Even at the list building stage too, I've been playing with some lists lately, and just thinking about how much RDP you generate, which is not something you have to think about with any other army. Being able to make sure, okay, I've got 3 heroes, but am I going to get enough RDP with those 3 heroes, or whatever the number is, right, to make the army function? And if you're taking double catapult and you want to buff their attacks every turn, or if you're taking 3 blocks of Mortec that are going to need shield wall, there's so many things you have to think about, even at the list stage, that make it, I think, interesting. Well, and I also like the fact that it's an elite Death army, because I got so burnt out with pushing around 80 skeletons and 30 grave guard and all these blocks, or 80 chain rafts or whatever. It's man, this is the grind. I can put 50 models on the table with OBR, and it still has kind of a horde feel. You get that one big block, and the unit autonomy. They can go out, they can do their own thing, and they have their own death save. I really like that kind of elite feel that they have compared to other kind of skeleton-based death armies.
Yeah, they really did kind of condense the 100 skeleton armies down into 50 to 60 of them, but still maintain that attrition feel that you love from Death. Plus some zoning and stuff, and there's a little bit of a trade-off. Obviously, bodies are a quality of their own, just having extra to do extra stuff on the table. But they maintain that like quintessential death vibe, but then it's just condensed down. And it really, as far as my experience, like tournament play, it's just there's less mental fatigue pushing around 50 dudes as opposed to 100 over the course of a weekend. So it really does feel selfishly like this was an army very specifically made for folks like us, where we wanted our enjoyment of that 100 skeleton or 100 ghosts or whatever plus death, but in a little bit more condensed way. And the trade-off is you've got to have a real cognizance at your list building phase and then all through your tactics and strategy while you're playing the game. So
yeah, I used to, even when I was playing death, I was playing more like elite death anyway with Tomb Kings, with the snakes, 12 snakes or chariots, or I wasn't pushing around 100 skeletons until legions came out, and then that became viable with the grave sites and everything.
Well, I mean,
but I hated it.
List.
Yeah, and I hated it. I just hated it. Like, even with Skaven, just to bring it back to Skaven, of course.
Secretly the Skaven show.
That was a barrier for me to paint and then play and move that many models. I've always been kind of more inclined to elite armies, obviously steering towards Sons of Behemoth, right? Going for the 6 model army. 8 if you're feeling really juicy.
Yeah, good luck doing a lot of winning with the 6.
I respect it.
There'll be some winning with the 6.
Yeah,
I love that army.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a pub stomper. Actually, we've got next week is going to be my official Gargans episode, so I'll be bringing on a gentleman for that one, Vanilla Sauce. He'll be on. He'll be joining me to actually cover that, and I think it's got. I do think it's like this is what a fat middle army looks like, but I do think it plays. It's going to play better than people are giving it credit for right now, because a lot of people are saying it's in the 2 and 3 or
no way.
I think it's I think it skews like the other way pretty easily. And there's against Ossiarch Bonereapers, they actually have kind of our number in terms of like how they play their ability to chomp a Mortek or a Hecatos and stuff like that. Like
Yep. To knock down the tower, right?
Yep.
On a 2-up. I played a game against them actually with my OBR. Was it 2 weeks ago? Donnie from our club has his building army. He brought over. We had a game. I lost. I just was caught out by kind of what they did and how many wounds you have to do to stop them scoring. Right? What did we play? We played Blade's Edge. So 6 objectives. He's 15 or 35 models. He was playing Taker Tribe. I killed everything. I turned bottom of 4. It was all dead. But I was behind on objectives. I ended up losing by 2 points, I think, on the objectives. Because it's just, you get caught out by how hard it is to get them off the objective. And how hard it is to kill them, really, if you can't get, 20, 25 Mortek in because of the base size. It's actually quite hard to pull one down. So, yeah, I think they're definitely a lot stronger than people originally thought.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that there's some real care in the design of the army, especially putting the Mega Gargants on the smaller base size, because that really does mean you're not, one great counter to gigantic monsters, battle line, good quality battle line, tend to just tear it down. Yeah. But you can't get those 30 Witch Elves in on it. You can't get the full might of your Mortek just completely surrounding it. So especially if you use a little bit of clever play with just one Man Crusher or something like that, you can really go far into sort of stringing out someone's army and denying them attacks. So
I finally did. I think I had 25 or 28 Mortek on it and killed one. It was basically clean. Just killed it. And it was in Praetorians. It wasn't even in Petrifex with the extra rend. Mm-hmm. But I had the extra attack from Catacross, so 3 attacks each. And just drug it down. Yeah. So it can be done, but like you say, you need the bodies to get in there.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of move on to. I think that's a pretty zoomed out. Why we like Ossiarch Bonereapers. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to Legion's abilities now. It's actually like when you read the Legion's abilities, it's kind of a, it's a full body of text, but it's only really a couple abilities. The main one is, okay, hey, we're battle shocking me in, and then it's RDP, Relentless Discipline. This is our whole thing. I mean, we get the Bone Tithe Nexus, which is, I've been talking to some of you offline on Twitter and stuff like that. Bone Tithe Nexus is what a terrain piece should be. Don't judge us that we got the good one and everyone else isn't as good. It's not overly good or too powerful. It is as powerful as a terrain piece should be. It is appropriate. Is the most appropriate terrain piece.
For a free model in your army, right?
Yeah. For a free model in your army, it is as good as that should be, and that is what that should look like going forward for other folks that wish to have good terrain as well.
And now it can die.
Now it's down. 2 up, right?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
2 up with giants? Yeah.
Yeah.
And any destruction army can take a model that can kill the terrain feature, and any death army can take a model that can kill the terrain feature. So, like, that's on you.
Yeah. If you don't like it, deal with it.
Right.
And Nick says it's no maw pot. Exactly.
I'll be going out my way to tip over maw pots.
that healing, so
game changing.
Well, the fact that you have to be
good.
near it with an army that wants to essentially be across the table, that's the part.
Well, the way it deploys too, right? It doesn't have to be like back in your zone. Like, it's just not good.
Yeah. Poor maw pot. But no, so I mean, RDP is the thing. The plus 3-inch move is really. That's sort of the generic relentless discipline we get to use, and then every sort of sub-faction has its stuff, and then most of our war scrolls on our units have the thing that they can do. Mortec guard get their shield wall, stalkers get their they get the stance for free, and then they can tap for another thing.
Reroll runs and charges.
Yeah, reroll runs and charges. So you've got those like cool little like everything's got its like little features, but you can burn through RDP really quickly. And like we were talking about, like you have to think about it at the list stage, which is just thinking about a resource in this way. It feels very, I don't know if I want to say like RTS-y or like it feels very wargamey to me. Like having to think about like an army resource when I'm building my army at the beginning. I love that. I love that about this army. Any reads? I think most people know what the Legion's abilities are all about with Ossiarch Bonereapers. But anything to talk about real quick about just the zoomed out view?
No, I mean just the RDP. I think the thing that it's unique is that it clears every turn, which is really interesting. Every battle round, sorry. At the end of every battle round, what you don't spend goes away, and you regenerate at every turn. So, as someone playing against OBR, one viable tactic would be to remove their RDP generation. You can kill small heroes or wipe units so that they're getting less RDP throughout the game.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm looking out for as an OBR player, is to protect my RDP generation base, right? So it gives players another way to attack the army as well.
Yeah.
So how many Relentless Discipline points do you like building into your list? Because I know for me, I build in kind of like a planned schedule of how I intend to spend the points over the course of each battle round. I typically am gonna spend X many in my opponent's turn and X many and Y many in my turn, unless something comes up where if I spend Z many, then I know I'm putting myself out there, but I'm hoping to have achieved this larger sizable goal to have put them really effectively out of commission.
Mm-hmm. Are you asking like a target number?
Yeah, what have you guys been aiming at? I know the list that I really like to play has 9.
Okay.
Plus the dice.
Static 9? That's a lot.
Yeah. So it's 5 from Catacross, 2 from Liege, 1 from Bone Shaper, 1 from Battalion, and then I think it's 7 dice rolls.
Yeah. It's a lot. The list.
The only person I've lost to is you with it, so.
Let's talk about that.
It was to Skaven, and so here we are.
Yeah, full circle Secret Skaven episode. Yeah, I mean,
I typically end up building lists with like a static. I won't go less than 6. 8's a good number. 9 feels like a lot. It depends. Like if you have crawlers, you need more because you want an extra shot of return on each of them. So you're burning 2 or 3 if you have Catacross every turn. So 5 are gone. 3 are gone. Then if you have shield walls, and the movement is big as well. So I've been playing some games lately with static 6, and then I always take the spell. So 6 plus D3, which is kind of on the edge, I would say. I'd like to have more. I was saying 6 to 8 is probably where I would go.
6 feels like the minimum to me. That's the minimum I've tended to work with is like 6 is a minimum, but, and then I go from there. It's like minimum I'm looking for a static 6. All the time. I feel like at 6 you're opening yourself up to being disrupted, and you're kind of running. That's like the minimum, running on fumes. Like at 6 is exactly as much as I need to do that turn, provided something doesn't go wrong. It's a war game. Things go wrong, right? Like so 6 for me has been like the minimum I run on. It just makes it Catacross feel so much more enticing now than ever before, because that like with Petrifex Elite sort of like out of the I want to say out of the equation, but appropriately reined back in where it belongs. Legally obligated to say. Like Mortis Praetorians, my eye just keeps looking over at that and being like, this feels like the new way to play, and Catacross already kind of wants to be in Mortis Praetorians and yada yada.
I mean, yeah. You don't have to be, but no, you wouldn't want to not. His command ability only works on Praetorians, right?
Currently, you don't want to be in there. Before, you ran him in Petrifex, the whole army got the +1 save.
It didn't matter. Yeah.
Right. And then you were just giving the +1 to hit.
Yeah. Catacross, for me, I've always wanted to play Catacross. That's one of the. I bought the army because of Catacross and the crawlers. Like that's those two models for me. It just completely sold it in terms of like the feel on the table. And I played a game 2 nights ago with Catacross. I had Catacross, 2 crawlers, and 2 units in my zone just sitting there, just lobbing rocks and giving +1 to hit, +1 to save a mile my army. And 40 Mortec just did the work. Just walk through things. Which you can do things like that because the +1 save, +1 to hit it's just that good.
Yeah.
And the -1 to hit table wide. I mean, he just does so much. He's 500 points, but
I mean he's. Vince and Brendan, you talked about this on Warhammer Weekly. Like Catacross feels what a 500-point field general should feel like. He does all of the commanding stuff. This isn't the model you're pushing into like having him punch stuff to death. Like he really does just kind of like point at stuff and like dictate the pace of combat. I mean, if you could get your Bone Tithe Nexus to go off for the -1 as well, which I believe
never works.
I've never got my Bone Tithe Nexus to work reliably.
Oh, you guys got to get my Bone Tithe Nexus. It puts people out of commission all day.
Maybe I should paint mine.
I know what it is. It's because we can use Mortec crawlers. You have to sacrifice being able to use the Bone Tithe Nexus.
Fine, fair trade.
But if you
I hate the shooting phase. There, I said it. It's dumb. I hate it.
I love my crawlers.
Yeah.
They're games where they do nothing, but I do love them.
Even
games when they do nothing, they just mess up your opponent's deployment. When you tell them I have a 43-inch range and I'm going to do 4 or 5 damage shots at you that hit on 2s, they're just like, oh, and it just messes with where they deploy.
Mm-hmm.
I think
they see my first dice roll and they go, nah.
Wounding on 3s is a problem. So you get yourself a Xanthos. Reroll those.
Mm-hmm. Xanthos.
It doesn't matter.
I love that, like, the sort of, like, play bias, like, we all have these little, I know the math hammer of this, or I know this does tactically. We all have these little quirks where some units we just swear don't work for us, and others we swear do, and so we have these little things we're always taking. I guess we can maybe draw the line in the sand right now. Does Bonereapers, is it meant to play with catapults right now? In we'll talk about like the meta as it exists. Like are they auto includes currently? And I might get 2 different opinions, which is why I ask it this way. But
I think the majority of the lists that are going to do winning, the answer is yes. That you should be taking 2 catapults.
Mm-hmm.
And the list that I think Shaun is talking about, where it's 2 catapults, Catacross, a Bone Shaper, it's like 50 Mortec, and like a horse unit, I think.
Yeah, the list I've been playing most recently is Catacross, Shaper, 40 guard, 10 guard, 2 5s of horses, and 2 catapults. So that's only at the min 6 RDP, so it's a little bit edgy. But man, those 2 5s of horses do so much for the list, just capturing objectives.
So rough. That was
it's
just
so good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It does so many things. And like again, you have to be careful with the RDP because you're spending 3 a turn on the crawlers and Catacross's ability. But you can not spend on a crawler 1 turn if you need to. You can do the bravery shot instead, right, and not have to spend it. But it doesn't have the Xanthos for the reroll wounds, but I feel like that's with Catacross being 500, I find it hard to take. I find it hard to take more than one extra hero with them and still have points to do anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was going to a 5-game event, I would not show up without crawlers. I've played many games without them, just one-off games for and there are good lists you can write. But if I was going to go and try and compete in 5 games across 5 games, I think you need the crawlers.
Yeah.
I still would take lists without them, but your bad matchups change. Yeah. And unfortunately, those bad matchups are the ones that you're more likely to see nowadays. But I'd rather be lucky than good, as Brad always says. So,
well, I mean, that's the thing is like your counter, so you can, lean into aggressive strategies and playing to your outs and so on and so forth. And if I was gonna punt it, whatever, but I played hard and I knew what I wanted to do to beat this opponent that's got my number type thing. Like you can do that as long as you're aware. So what is it that catapults do for this army? I guess what is the issue we're dancing around, Shaun? What is it that catapults do for Ossiarch Bonereapers that really kind of put the puzzle together in our sort of current?
Yeah, for me it's the reach, because at the end of the day, the skeletons move 4, right? I mean you're spending RDP to make them move 7, but as we've said, that's a limited resource. So you don't want to be spending RDP every turn to make your skeletons move 7. So I think having that reach to make your opponent, at least on some level, come to you is really, really helpful. Because if you can get them in range of those 40 Mortec or 30 Mortec to make that charge, they're just going to chew through whatever they hit. That's for me. It's just the range and the reach and messing with my opponent's deployment and the other thing is drops, right? So unless you're playing a battalion, the army is typically 8, 9 drops. So you're not going to get choice a lot. So the catapults make that choice tough for your opponent. Otherwise, they just give you 1, you shamble forward 4 inches and get charged, or do nothing, right? So the catapults give you that first turn option, which I think is what the army needs.
Right. They sort of force the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. Brendan, anything to add or anything differing?
No, I think you nail it there, especially when so many of the things that are problematic right now are ranged. The very combat-oriented list that I like to run, definitely really struggles hard in those matchups. But like the way the fighting platform is set up, it plays differently, where the catapult list can kind of afford to play slowly across the table. The combat-oriented lists are looking to establish position and fight it out. And against lists that don't even want to engage you, it's not a problem. They don't have to.
Yeah, so
being an elite army, we're not going to have the model count typically. So if you're playing a combat-oriented army, you're going to have 10s of horses or 6s of stalkers or something where they're going to get out there, they're going to do work, they're going to kill stuff, but it's a small model count and they're going to get swarmed. Typically.
Yeah. So you have to be really decisive in your play with it, and I think that something that I think you were kind of hinting to or alluding there, Brendan, is that when you go the combat route, you say essentially the non-crawler route with the Ossiarch Bonereapers, you really have to get your strategy into motion and like make the right play early and commit. There's not a whole lot of like if there's not a whole lot of like forgiveness if you don't commit to the correct strategy early. So crawlers afford you some leeway in that sort of like committing to an early strategy. If you pick the wrong strategy early, you lose. You crawler the wrong stuff early, like it could be a real big deal, but you're not sticking your neck out in the wrong position, right? Like you're not like in the wrong position and then scrambling to get back into the game later on. So I think that like there's some appeal to the combat style, by the way. Like I've played both with catapults, without. My catapults aren't painted, so don't tell anyone. But
don't tell anyone. I have one painted Mortec guard, not a unit. One painted Mortec guard.
Yeah, but
I have a few painted Ossiarch Bonereaper models.
Don't worry.
Great looking dead pile, Brendan. It's a great looking dead pile.
Yeah, chat gang's
sounds good to me.
Chat gang's holding me to it. I'm getting back into hobbying next month. I promised I would. So I'll paint some models here. I'll get out of my sort of COVID funk. But yeah, no, I've played with both. I think the catapults are fun. I have games where they just never do anything, and I'm just like, and like I'm just, why does everyone think these things are the best? And then you have that game where you just do actually like roll, like throw the rocks and delete it.
Where you play against Skaven and they blow up half a unit of plague monks without breaking a sweat by just rolling 5-ups. It's just certain matchups they just ruin somebody's day.
Yeah,
it's low bravery stuff.
Yeah.
Play a nice army and watch those 60s disappear. Right? Yeah.
What's that?
I said play a Grot army and watch those 60 bricks disappear.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it's nice. All right, so yeah, catapults. I think it obviously I wouldn't hesitate to call them an auto include, but you got to know what you're doing if you're going without them, and I think that's really the main take here.
I don't think there's much in that book that's an auto include really. Mortec Guard, I guess, because they're battle line and they're really good. But you can make an argument for most things in the book except for Volkmordian is terrible. That's pretty much it. You don't like a Mortis Guard? You don't, right?
Shaun, they have no place. They serve no function.
One unit with Arc in the Black. That's the only reason you would take them as the babysitter. No.
You are not taking a 560 point Arcan the Black. It makes no sense. They can't keep up with him. Like, Shaun, that's absurd. That's a ridiculous opinion to have.
I love it.
Trigger warning.
Yeah, I love it. Dreamer.
If you're going to do that, you take 3 of the chair guys and 3 of those. If you get more value out of that. Don't be ridiculous.
But the models are cool.
They are very cool.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, the Mortis are really sweet looking. Them. Yeah.
They are garbage though.
Dreamer dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone checking. Ain't nothing to mess with. Mortec Guard, I know there was the hot take there for a little while that, there's so many Mortec Guard at tournaments, like, ha 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 ha. This is because Ossiarch Bonereapers are overpowered. I'm like, those two takes don't line up. We have 2 battle line options in our entire army. One of them is 130 point, which is the Mortec Guard, and the other
180.
180. What do you think is going to happen in the army construction? You're going to see a lot of Mortec Guard. So it's just one of those lazy takes that I despise. I guess you could call them an auto-include, but they're one of your 2 battle line options. They're your cheaper battle line option. They kind of behoove you to take many of them with how the army plays. Until we see some battle line if options for maybe some stalkers and stuff, you're going to see Mortec Guard get played. But that's kind of how it should be. It's a skeleton army. You should see freaking skeletons. I don't know. So my Mortec Guard apologist take aside, when you look at list construction, there is a good variance. Catacross makes you feel his 500 point cost. You really, there's your battalion if you take Catacross. It becomes a real struggle to do I take a battalion now or don't I?
Yeah, I don't think you can. It's too many points.
Yeah, especially if you're grabbing crawlers. Well, yeah. Oh, Brendan, why don't you talk a little bit about the list that you run, the quote unquote, we call it breakthrough.
Yeah, so it's Catacross, a Liege Cavalos, Bone Shaper, 30 Brick of Guard, 20 Brick of Guard, and then 2 units of 5 horses with the Cavalos Lance and the Nightmare Predator spell. You can not take the Nightmare Predator spell and get the Triumph. Now, especially because they're actually of value to you, as opposed to where 3 of them you couldn't use, so just skip it. But now you can use all of them, and they're really good. So maybe that.
And you kind of get to use them out of sequence, as I recall, is where Triumphs really, really give you a super advantage. So.
Yeah, especially potentially you're really looking for rerolls to wound with this.
For sure.
You're 2x4s in a lot of cases. So that's 9 static RDP. And you have the battalion, so you're actually a 5-drop, which puts you in just above kind of that sweet spot of 4, but it puts you in a competitive enough spot where you are going to more often have choice than you won't. And that's really nice. But the key to that is what I like to think of as as pin and move past. The part of the breakthrough list is the fact that the horses hit you and then retreat and charge into the thing that they want to next.
Mm-hmm.
So I set the line with the Mortek Guard. I'm able to play a little bit wider, which is one of the things I really don't like about the catapult list, is you have to stay very castled. That's fine, you just have to play it different.
Yeah.
I like the ability to play wide and be in a bunch of different places with some meaningful impact. And yeah, basically you set the line with the Mortek, and then you have the horses hit the thing, and then come past it, and then hit the thing that your opponent really doesn't want them to hit. And
well, now they're already,
Yeah.
like you said, you've set the point of attack, so they're already kind of pushed back, which means then you can bring in that tasty block of Mortek Guard and punch face. But yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's a bit tricky because you have to get
your
the horses. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, hopefully your opponent's a moron and turns their attention to the horses, and then you just score points all game, and it's too late to deal with your Mortek Guard at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
It's a bit tricky because you have to get the liege back there with the horses to do the retreat and charge.
Oh, it's so easy.
So you just charge everything and then just run around the back.
Yeah, because he has to be in range when they make their next charge move, and it's wholly within 12. So
correct.
You know.
Yeah, I'm thinking about them getting behind the line, and if you're on both flanks, it's not going to work on both sides. But we're doing
no. They are their own block of things,
and they go.
Those 11 models work together.
Sure.
Yeah, they're essentially one hammer, like just kind of pivoting around and and
he can actually stay at the front of the line because you have that wholly within 12. They'll swing around the back and you'll still get that 12-inch bubble because he's like a weirdly large base.
100 mil round, which is super weird.
Yeah, but whatever. So he can play at the front, still give buffs to the Mortek that are coming up the other direction, and still pass off the battalion bonus.
Yeah, those horses are so fast, man. With your 9 RDP, you're just making them move 15. I mean, you have so much RDP that you don't care.
I'm 15. I'm doing my free impact hit, and then I'm spending another one to get another one, maybe to shake a guy loose or two. Then I'm spending another point on +1 attack for all of them, and that's only like 5.
Yeah, and you don't have collars to worry about. So you have, I think that list has, I'd argue, too many RDP. I don't know if you ever spend it all.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
There are definitely turns where
guys combat. He's like, we're gonna shield wall these guys. Brenda, there's no one around them. I don't care. I'm spending it.
You know that I am so over our game. If I'm just like, and just reroll saves on all these. Like what?
What? They're not in combat. Doesn't matter. Rerolling saves.
Or it's like they're in combat with a unit that like they're gonna kill. Like it's 3 guys. It's three zombies or something. And I have like my whole 20 brick, and I'm like, reroll saves on the 30 brick, because they need it. Well, why them? I don't know. It's the bottom of the turn. Like I gotta use these.
Gotta spend it.
Yeah, they don't roll over, man. So, Brendan, you've actually gotten in some experiences, both Mortis Praetorians with the breakthrough list versus as Petrifex Elite. What has your finding been? Because I know within our little close-knit community, a lot of the people who talk Ossiarch Bonereaper tech with me, many of us were saying, you're just going to go, we felt the Petrifex Elite change was inevitable just via the noise, and we're like, most people are just going to switch to Mortis Praetorians and like not lose sleep, beat you a turn later, and like that'll be fine. Has that become the reality? Do you have deeper insights into that? Like, what is the reality of like, just make it Mortis Praetorians and like it's fine now? Like, what is the reality of that versus our like predictions?
Yeah, if you were doing what I was doing, where you were taking Catacross in a non-Mortis Praetorians list, Petrifex, and basically
Ivory Host.
Sure, if you want.
Think of how look at his propensity for being wounded. He could take the wound easily and get back the save with his command ability. He is made to accidentally be an Ivory Host.
Spend those 9 RDP, no problem.
Yeah. He's begging to be an Ivory Host.
Oh my God.
Brendan, you've done it. You've written the Ivory Host list.
Yeah, you found it.
Except he's not keyword Ivory Host. He
right. He can't actually benefit.
Oh no!
He can't even use it.
He can't even. Oh man, he can't even use it. Sadness. All right.
I'm sad. No, but basically what's happened is all that has changed in the list that I really like to run is I have just swapped out the mandatory Legion artifact on my Leech Cavalos. And chances are, for the 6 other of you that were playing a list like this, it's the same game. It's exactly the same. Your opponent is still largely charging you, so you don't have rend. Fine. You're spending those discipline points slightly differently. You're more likely to spend +1 attack and shield wall, whereas before I found myself, making the decision between +1 attack and shield wall, or an additional rend and shield wall, or +1 attack and rend if I felt like I didn't have to respect my opponent's attacks characteristic.
Yep.
It happens.
No, it does.
But it's basically the same. The only thing you struggle with a little bit more is the stuff that's like a 3-up. Okay. It takes you a little bit longer. But you have more attacks to give in that sense. And so it doesn't totally even out, but the result ends up being kind of the same.
Yeah. Yeah, about a half a round or a at combat longer is really what it ends up being in sort of practicality.
It's the catapults that got way better by being Praetorians. Taking Xantos in a Petrifex list made no sense. There was no value in that.
Right.
Petrifex catapult lists were good, but they didn't have the opportunity to be kind of kicked over that extra notch if you want.
The extra synergies to really push them into that. Like, a catapult just shooting 1 extra turn, like, pretty good. A catapult, 2 catapults shooting extra, each of them shooting with an extra shot, each of them re-rolling wounds. Now you're starting to really start to hammer home some synergies.
Yeah.
Yes, Heretic, we are talking Ossiarch Bonereapers. This is the OBR episode from, Two of the Best to Do It, and myself. So, just kind of like a retrospective and sort of where we are, where are they now? VH1 style OBR.
I'm still here. It's not, we're not going anywhere.
Not playing games.
Yeah, not playing games. Okay, well, this is trying to be optimistic here. There was some barbecue hammer going on. I saw some camp hammer going on. I saw some garden hammer going on.
We played a couple games here back in like June or July, but it's still a pandemic, so
I'm a big fan of undisclosed location hammer. That's
undisclosed location. Yeah. That's the real like that's the real quality hammer, really, the undisclosed location hammer. I mean, it's weird because, like, in some respects, I look and it feels like the rest of the world started to play Warhammer again, and then we're just like, yay, stasis meta. Apocalypse hammer. But I think that this has been a time to reassess your armies and your lists, to try some wacky stuff and like the close games you can get with, like, whether you still have like a club night going on or a couple friends that are kind of in your own little isolation bubble where, hey, we don't talk to anyone else. We don't, we all have those little like closed circles, I think. You've had to get through this. And playing in that sort of setting, I think you get to experiment more. You get to run your Ivory Host list and find out that it is as garbage as we have all told you on the internet.
It's so much worse. It's so much worse.
Is it? But no, I think that if I were to like assess the place in the meta, the fact that we have more natural predators, and this is regardless of if Petrifex Elite changed or not, the fact that we have more natural predators, I think that are the dominance, the Ossiarch Bonereaper overlords, they were going to come down back down to earth, and I think that would have happened naturally whether Petrifex Elite changed or not. That being said, they didn't go from like great to just barrel, like bottom of the barrel tier. I think they normalized out in pretty great, but I think that what has become a reality is understanding that the skill floor of this army is a little bit higher than it was originally given credit for. it is a more tactical army. The RDP, management is more poignant now than ever before. Especially, without a +1 to save, maybe I don't shield tilt here. I have faith in my 3-up, right? I'll take the rend. Well, now you actually have to make that decision, Like, I think stuff like that becomes more valuable. Unless you're running catacross and you're like +1 save across the whole 36.
Yeah, you have to basically decide at the list stage whether you want +1 save or -1 rend. That's right. The choice that the Petrifex change made, which I think is a reasonable choice. I mean, you can argue whether or not the Petrifex change was
the correct change or was it dirt.
But apart from that, the outcome of it is now you have a choice. Do you want -1 rend or do you want +1 save? Mm-hmm. And if you want the latter, you have to take catacross to do it. So there's a 500 point quote unquote tax for that +1 save.
But he's not every single point.
He's worth every cent of it. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Plus the model.
But he's not. He's not undercosted.
He's not undercosted. Shout it from the mountaintop.
I think that's the craziest thing about that 500 point model is it is exactly the right number of points.
Yeah. It is.
Especially in the context of its own book. When you look at this is a quarter of my army, and then you start to, if you go Shaun's route with 2 catapults, you're at 900 points, right? Like, that is half your army on 3 models, essentially. Yeah. And you're already running elite with your bony boys, so it's, I mean, you feel.
That's why,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you play the catapults, like you can't do a battalion, and I have a hard time doing a 3rd hero. I mean, you can put Xanthos in there, but then you're really lean. Basically, one of those knight units becomes Xanthos, which it works, it's fine, but I like having the 2nd knight unit and just makes the colors a bit less effective, but having an extra 5-man unit to go off and do things, I found to be really valuable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. G-Dead dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with, and correct, Catacross Heart. And this is a go a little philosophical here. I don't think it's a bad thing for armies to play with their cool big centerpiece thing. I actually, especially, we've kind of moved into a direction with Age of Sigmar where our books are a little bit thinner. Not every book is Skaven or Cities of Sigmar. Usually, there's not a ton of War Scrolls in there. You shouldn't feel like an idiot for wanting to play with your army's feature centerpiece model.
Unless you're Sylvaneth.
Yeah, he's Sylvaneth. It feels kind of bad to run Olander.
Has anybody tried the 0 point Alariel challenge that you tossed out there?
No, it wasn't me. Who was it?
I think it was Meph. Wasn't it somebody on talking with you, Meph, that was like, if Alariel was 0 points, she would still be bad.
Someone talking to me did issue the 0. It wasn't me, but this is a conversation I did have. So Darren Watson in the UK has like the Gotrek challenge, like just go to tournaments and rack up how much stuff you can kill. With Gotrek and, tally it, and then he was going to send you a prize at the end of the year. Obviously, COVID's made everything complicated. But the 0 point Alariel challenge, I feel you could do this at home with your friends. Play games where Alariel costs 0 points. And, like, you can do a little control game where, like, you run the same list with and without her, and just... And do like a best of 3 or a best of 5. If you can play against a spectrum of opponents, if you've got a friend with a couple armies, or you get a couple friends with a couple of armies, you can get a nice little spread.
Like that.
Yeah, you don't have it. No, you don't know anyone like that in Detroit.
Nothing like that up here.
Nothing like that in Detroit. Yeah. So I want you. So I will officially issue this through like say like I think we could go through like the next 6 months and your personal, just keep a personal track, like a little track, and see the actual impact of the 0 point Alariel on your games.
The thing is, she's so inexpensive. She's already effectively 300 points, right? She's 600, right? And she brings on a 200 point unit for free, so 400 points.
Yeah.
And she's still not worth it. She's just a liability.
Yeah, so she'd be negative 200 points in this instance.
Yeah, because she gets a 200 point unit for free.
Yeah, so there you go. Do the Alariel, and like maybe we'll have Chat Gang, like, I don't know, paint some trees or something for you.
That's not a bad prize. That's a nightmare. I don't want to look at all the models, and I was like, oh shit, I have to paint all those trees. That was seriously questioning my life choices at that point. It was terrible.
We'll send you a gift card to Denny's because nothing good happens there.
Gift card to Denny's. Boom. Them gams, though, it is true. She does have the inspiring gams.
I have an Illyrio primed black in the basement, just sitting there because why would you paint it?
I understand that.
I do want to try her on the table because she can't be that bad. Although I've had many people, many of whom I respect in their Sylvaneth ability, telling me she's just completely awful.
So. Oh, I mean, there's some.
But I've not had her on the table myself.
You got to get some practical experience in for yourself at some point with any of these criticisms that you hear on the internet. Cavalist command traits. So as far as Ossiarch Bonereapers, I guess that we know that like you pretty much run with a boneclave, as we like to say around these parts, but you pretty much do run with a subfaction. Subfactionless Ossiarch Bonereapers isn't really a reality. I have a take on that. It's pretty simple. That's a fine reality. I don't get the appeal of people wanting less rules. As like the snowflake power of like, well, I don't want to run with an enclave. I want to run with nothing, and I want that to be as viable as like the cool enclaves with like specific narratives and awesome shit going on and like iconic characters. I don't get that.
The issue is a lot of times they're only half awesome. So I think what people are probably wanting is the ability to kind of create their own, right? Choose your own adventure. Pick your own artifacts. Pick your own command traits.
I respect
that. Like Flesh Eaters has that, right? So you can do like Feast Day instead of doing one of the other Gristlegore or whatever.
Yeah, no, I respect that.
So I think there is mileage in being able to choose your own adventure in that respect. But not a thing in OBR.
No, and I don't think it's criminal that in Ossiarch Bonereapers you can't go sort of bone claveless. I don't think it's actually pretty cool to play with them, but there really are just kind of two we'll say competitive tier ones right now. It is Mortis Praetorians, and I think Petrifex Elite are still good.
You can do some cool stuff if you want to go combat build. You can do some cool stuff with it, but I want to go with Catacross, so Praetorians it is. Right,
and that makes it an easy decision. From there, the read on Null Myriad. I liked what you said on Warhammer Weekly there, Brendan. Rather than repeat it for you, you had a read on Null Myriad, which was how many more Magic armies do we need in the game? And then I'll have Shaun kind of answer the same question. How many more Magic armies do we need in the game for Null Myriad to feel like it is?
I think the consensus was 2. The driving factor is, in my mind, is if you're gonna come across 3 or more armies where Null Myriad's rules are going to be a significant factor in the game. If you're expecting less than 3, that 1 or 2 category, there are better subfactions to take to counteract that. Like, you are better off in that case running a double catapult Praetorians list, because that matchup is going to be better in 4 games as opposed to being better in 2. Mm-hmm. There's a weird math to it but if it flips over to where you win those 3 games by just simply being Null Myriad, then that's the choice, right?
Sure.
And that can be indicative. That could actually be very telling for your local meta too, because depending on what your local meta might be, you might be facing, 2 Tzeentch, like just guaranteed 2 Tzeentch lists and like maybe an LRL list or something like that in Seraphon, and that's your local meta. Null Myriad feels a lot more appealing now, doesn't it? But out in the wild, in a tournament, sort of a blind meta, that's usually not your reality. Your reality is you will run into one of those armies. Just statistically speaking, you might even run into 2 of them. But the scale tipping that you need that Null Myriad. I don't know. That being said, if you're like, man, I can crush every other combat army without any bonus rules, I just want to shore up my victory against like the Magic armies, then that's a you thing. Do you, boo? Like, no judgment. The
that's
artifact.
Actually, what I was gonna.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, if you feel so confident in all the other matchups that you don't need your Praetorian save or your Petrifex Rend, which we don't feel that confident right now, I would say. But if you feel that confident against the rest of the meta, that you just want to shore up that Magic matchup, because again, mortal wounds are a problem for the army, right? 6 up, that's what we get. If you feel that that's really your gap, then I think Null Myriad is a very nice tool in the book that we can field that if you're going into an environment where you feel there's a bunch of Tzeentch and whatever else kicking around.
Right.
But right now, I think that, as Brendan said, we're not there yet.
Yeah. Perfect. Sorry, I didn't mean to kind of take your take from.
No worries. No worries.
So this leaves Stalliarch Lords as like kind of the question mark for me. Does
Stalliarch Lords, big thumbs up.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay. All right. Do you think we put it in the same cat? No, you're good. Do you think we put it on the same tier as Mortis Praetorian / Petrifex Elite? Does it fall between Null Myriad and no?
I think it's a half step
better.
above.
I put it above Null Myriad because it's more generally useful. But it's not as good as the other two.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's clever, but clever doesn't get you wins all the time.
Very rarely.
It's clever.
I was writing Stalliarch Lords list last night or 2 nights ago, actually, just kind of messing around with the Deathglaive and some Stalkers and.
Man, I got a Deathglaive list that I think has legs and it's killing me.
And just running at people. It's probably the same list I was. I think it's really fun, right? But you're putting yourself out there. If anyone doesn't know, the whole army just gets to run in charge, so you can just run at people, but you don't have the extra rend of Petrifex. You're largely running at people with rend 1 and hoping to kill a lot, which, depending on what you're facing, will work.
You're running at them with these guys.
Rend 2, yeah, you could do that.
Rend 2,
I settled
D3.
on a list with only a 2 back of those guys just for the battalion. Just 2 of them, and then 2 6 of the Stalkers. And
that's the Deathglaive, right? Like the
no. It's 1 Harbinger and 2 Stalker units.
Yep.
And the whole
I go 1 unit of 6 Stalkers.
Get a 6-inch move. So you're getting a pregame 6-inch move and run and charge with those 3 units. So you could just max them out 6, and then 4 Harbingers just run at people with those 3 units.
Do you still have the points to cover your battle line at that point though? Is like I feel like the problem.
Just barely.
That's why I went down to only 2 Archi. Do I have it here? Here's the list that I wrote a couple nights ago.
There is a screen share feature if it's a.
It's on my iPad.
Oh, okay.
I had double Cavalos, Bone Shaper, 10 guard, 5 horses, 2 Harbingers, 2x6 Stalkers, and a Shrieker. And I went double Cavalos so that I could take Helm of the Ordained on the second Cavalos for the +1 to hit and just run them up the field with them.
Yep.
I don't think it's good, but I think it's fun. It'll smash some fools that aren't paying attention by just moving those Stalkers 12 inches. No, 15 inches because you're +3. Move 6, +3, and then we have a rerollable charge. So 24 away, you're at a 9 rerollable. 18 away, you're just getting in.
I don't even think you need to spend the discipline point to go 3. You're re-rolling runs as well on those. You're already spending the discipline point to move up.
That's true. It depends. Yeah, you haven't seen my run rolls, Brendan, but you can always spend it after. You spend that in the move phase, right? So you can run and then do it.
Yeah. So their ability you have to spend in like the hero phase or something wild.
No, I'm talking about the +3 move. So you can do your run, re-roll your run. If it's still a 1 or 2, then you can spend the RDP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go brick a 6, brick a 3, and 2 Harbingers to try and just get more bodies on the field.
Yeah.
Well, one of the hidden
covering the battle line.
Well, while we're on the subject here, one of the hidden weaknesses of Ossiarch Bonereapers, if you're, dear viewer, if you're watching this or if you're listening back on like Spotify or something like that, we can't actually 6 our runs because that is a general command ability thing. We don't get that. RDP says you don't get to do that stuff, and similarly, we can't reroll charges. So we lose out on those. Are 2 key things in this game that this army doesn't get to do. There are ways to compensate. I think that the +3 inch thing and the fact that most of our standards are +1 run and charge or +1 run, +1 charge are sort of meant to compensate. The +1 run and charge essentially means that if you are outside of 3 inches, you still get your guaranteed charge if you played the game, well, and you should still be, you don't snake eyes it and then fail your charge when you played correctly. So, I'm sorry, back to the point though, because what is cool is like the Stalkers getting reroll charges as their kind of thing, unlocks something that we don't normally have access to.
So just by taking the battalion, they're going 12 plus 3d6, and the 3d6 are all rerollable if you spend their command ability. So the question is, what do they do when they get there?
Well, they blender. They blender.
Yeah, they do okay. Depends what you're charging into, right?
Yeah, you got to make sure that like you hit edges, like your return fire isn't going to be too crazy. You can't have them too far
they'll die.
ahead of.
They're going to kill what they touch, but then they're going to die. Right? 4 wounds with
or you put them on defense mode, and you annoy the shit out of your opponent.
They're such a cool unit. If you can survive that
second wave, if you
and get into the reroll saves mode, they're super good.
Yeah. No, I like
play that just to put 12 stalkers on the table because I think they're super cool. Again, I think it'll win games, right? But I think it has some really bad matchups. Like Lords do in general, because you're banking on being able to run and kill things, and if you can't do that, then you don't really have a plan B. I don't like armies without a plan B. So.
Well, I think Ossiarch Bonereapers as an army have like our sort of counter matchups isn't a soft RPS, like a soft rock paper scissors. Our counter matchups seem pretty hard, you know. Like and that's one of the things where for me it's a challenge accepted type thing where it's just like I love kind of having to think outside the box and like challenge myself and solve a problem a different way and stuff like that. But if this is an army that really truly feels its hard counters pretty hard. It's so thorough. It's written right in the shield wall ability. It says doesn't count on ranged. They doubled down on it with Petrifex Elites rerolling ones. Doesn't count on range. That would have been. It was the right change, but if they wanted to make it the righter change, that could have at least worked in shooting to be something at all. Sorry, I digress.
Are you saying you disagree with the change?
I am I am legally obligated to to be okay with the Petrifex Elite change. But no,
that's why I think if you play Petrifex now, you play like really just minimum Mortec Guard because they get the shield wall anyway to roll their saves. So I've been playing like a horse heavy list in Petrifex that I like. The Cavallos Lance with 2 10s, and then 2 10s of guard, and then either 6 stalkers or 4 more gas, whatever you want to bring for that extra 400 points, right? Whatever your utility unit. And It's got speed, it's got movement, it's got Ren 2 on the horses, which are Petrifex. I do like that list a lot too. It's got mobility. It can stretch out, like you were saying, Brendan, really kind of play the flanks because it doesn't care. It doesn't really need to be close to each other. The retreat and charge thing is handy with the like Cavallos, but I have fun with that list.
Yeah. The other thing though, Meph, with your point towards us being hard counters, the Bonereapers being hard countered, the Bonereapers have matchups that are the hardest of hard counters. There are games where, as a Bonereaper player, you walk up to the table and there's literally nothing your opponent can do to beat. There's nothing that they can do to win that game.
Yeah.
Which, cool, sign me up. It's just you have to know that there's a price that you pay for
that, and that price that you pay is the sort of like you will be on the other side of that whooping you dish out. I really feel like there was some care put into Ossiarch Bonereapers as a competitive army, in terms like. Maybe I don't want to say more so. I don't know the full design process when it comes down to like Warhammer from like the literal like bare bones. They have a proof of concept and they're like, this is our basic principles. This is what we want to make the army as. That from that initial sort of design and then through the whole inertial process of what happens with Ossiarch Bonereapers. And maybe this goes to why I love the army so much. It feels like it really did have that thought towards like competition. The 25 mil bases on Mortec Guard, Petrifex Elite kind of as a high watermark for the competitive stretch of the army. There was just certain things in where I go like, this is a very the fact that we have hard counters and are hard countered, or like that we have that like sort of thing going on. Like some people fundamentally disagree with that style of gameplay, and I respect the opinion, but I love it. I like when you're like. I use League of Legends or a Magic the Gathering reference, like in League of Legends, you're in a lane and you're like, I lose this matchup, right? And so one of two things happen. You either play conservative, because you're like, I lose this matchup, I just need to not lose it too hard, or you go like, screw it, I'm going to wait for them to make a mistake and then all in them and like blow them up, and then like you get that feeling that you just like, you defied the odds. Like I like that rush of like feeling like it's kind of I'm liberated in a hard matchup setting where I'm like, okay, like, cool, I punt this game, then I'm going to play hard, and I'm going to go for the crazy, like, go for my outs. I'm going to go for those hard or difficult maneuvers. I'm going to try to find a new way to solve the puzzle. So I personally like that. I think that's another reason I really, really love this army. Shaun, any thoughts on the hard matchups, sort of, RPS nature of Ossiarch Bonereapers before I move on?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, it is nice to be able to know that you have to play well with the army. I think it doesn't really play itself. Against some matchups, sure, you just push it forward and they can't kill you. Like, if they don't have Rend, they're really in a hard way.
Toast.
if you're a Praetorian and they don't have Rend, then you basically just push it forward because they can't kill anything fast enough. But apart from that, it's so interesting how few units you typically have on the board, and every unit becomes so valuable. So to be able to place those units in the right place and move them in the right place, it makes you feel like you can even win hard matchups if you really just spread out and you target saturation.
Yeah.
Scenarios are big, right? So like there's things you can do with the army. I mean, Tzeentch is kind of a problem with heavy mortal wounds. KO is KO, but there are certainly, that's a tough one to win, by the way. KO. That's hard.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. What is this? 2017? Like KO and death.
Over the when the handbook came out, we had 3 guys in the club all playing KO, and it was like every week we were playing KO, and I was like, oh gosh, let's play something else. But I did win a couple games, and you got to be careful. You have to zone things out as best as you can, and hope for the double, basically, right? And like the double turn is a great equalizer.
Hope that they roll bad.
Hope that they roll bad. Yeah, well, with all the triumph, that doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a really great point. That, like, I think this ties back into that sort of like tactical genius of the army, that vibe where you really do feel like you're in control of your game. And for a combat army, I think that's pretty special. Because usually as a combat army, it kind of feels like the matchups and the battle plans are always going to dictate. They're the great equalizer of our game. But, like, you look at the matchup and you go, like, I don't know really how I control this. With Ossiarch Bonereapers, I'm like, it is on me a lot because that skill floor is a little bit higher than I think they're given credit for because of just the sort of lack of units you kind of have on the table. You're sort of forced into a narrower strategy at the list building phase. I love that about the army. I want to be able to do that with my armies. That's why I love Beasts of Chaos so much, is because, like, I am 100% always having to decide whether or not I win with this army. And even then, you got to get hot. You got to, like, do all this other stuff. The stars have to align, but you must, as a prerequisite to play it, make the correct decisions. Otherwise, you're just going to get blown up.
You still don't win. Well,
well, I don't know. My record against OP ass Sladash says otherwise.
There you go. Good. Pound those guys into the ground.
Yeah. Well, that was pre-nerf, and like I went 50-50 with him on Beasts of Chaos, and it's just like, when you're supposed to be the bad army, like, oh man.
Yeah, when you're all single win models, no depravity, and you just swarm them, right?
That's what it is, and like you just speed bomb. Yeah. Everything's outside of 4 inches. You have only the keeper with the thermal rider to worry about. So just like, you can do infinity damage to 10 Ungors. It doesn't matter. Like,
doesn't matter.
It just this is outside. You're gonna have to.
One thing they do well. Yeah, many speed bombs.
Yeah, you either have to charge it or go around.
It allows that to win the game for you.
Yeah,
if you're playing like 3 places, you're kind of screwed. But you're playing.
Yeah, so you punt those, but you thrive on the sort of 5 objective game. That actually kind of leads me into a struggle I've personally had with Ossiarch Bonereapers, which is objectives that battle plans that start to drift above 5 objectives. You both are much more experienced, much better players than me. I personally struggle with any battle plan with Ossiarch Bonereapers where it starts to drift above 5 objectives. I can 5. I'm like 5 or 4. I'm like fine. I have like usually 2 just like absolute powerhouse points of the board where I'm like, this is mine now, and then I get into motion to kind of control that third to be on the sort of like up like other side of the odds that try to contest 3 out of the 5. I will win this game, right? With once it starts to get above that, I start to feel like I'm stretched super thin, and I have a hard time covering the table, and I have a hard time winning those games. What has been your experience with that? I feel like Shaun will have you answer, then Brendan will have you kind of answer that. Like, what's your experience with that, and how have you compensated? How have you played it? Do you have a different experience?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, with the army being, again, an elite army and not having many units on the board that can actually go capture objectives, it does make it challenging, right? And the list that I typically play, which has catacross and 2 crawlers aren't generally capturing an objective. They'll hold your own, maybe, for a while if they need to, but they're not going to go out and get anything, right? Mm-hmm. So this kind of pressure to be able to move around the board and play missions with lots of objectives is how I landed on adding that second unit of horses into that Praetorians list I've been playing. Taking out the leash, taking out the extra buff piece to be able to move around the board and threaten those extra objectives. Because most of the ones where there's a lot of objectives, you can burn them, or they move, or like, what's the new one? Forcing the hand, where one of them's a primary, so you don't really have to hold all of them at the same time. So being able to move around the board and be in different places is something that I've been able to play around with the army, just taking more movement, I guess. And in some of those games, Catagos just has to do work. He can't sit in the back. You have to push him forward. He doesn't like that. He likes to kind of be in the back and be the boss that he is, but sometimes you have to put him on the line and move him his whole 7 inches and hope to get out there and do something. So you kind of just have to use every piece you have. And sometimes it comes down to 2 crawlers holding your home objective because that's what you have left. And, sometimes that's enough. So using every piece that you have and leveraging mobility, I guess that's what I would say to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it reflects in the way that I like to build my lists, where I want to be able to play the table wide. So when I'm looking at those super multi-objective games where they're split all the way across the table in different divisions, in that 6 or 8 category, I like to think about it and approach it this way, where the 30 brick is its own self-contained thing. It's going to start on one side, and it's going to take as much time as it needs to walk across the board and go take the objective on the other side that my opponent has. Because the 30, there's very little that can handle a 30. And even less that can handle a 40 in
even now, even now, that some of our natural predators have showed up, because flamers can pump out the damage, right? But you still holding that line?
Huh? I got charged top of 1x2 Maw Crushers and lost a 38 out of a 40 block the other day.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that person committed 1,100 points to killing your unit.
And then you know what happened? Catacross killed 2 Maw Crushers.
Yeah! You boy, tactical genius.
No, sorry, you baited him in spending over half of his army not killing something. Congratulations, you did it.
Yeah.
So I like to set the 30 brick to one flank. I'll put Catacross right in the middle because his buff, is best when centered. I'll take the 20 brick and have the Bone Shaper behind it with the Artisan's Key to keep them up. And, Shaun remembers how good that was.
It was the 30 that was good, not the 20.
I know. He was nearby.
I don't like rules that only work on a 4-up.
Yeah.
That's why. That's why. For whatever reason, my catapults don't work for me because they're less than a 4-up. But my
power. Yeah.
But my Bone Tide Nexus works great.
Yeah. So he's got the power of the 4-up. Is that what it is? That's what it is. Yeah, you got the power of the 4-up. That's why you were good with skeletons. If you can roll 4s,
you will not see the Artisan's Key in my 4-up. Things that work on a 4-up. Not gonna happen. The Nexus is free, so I take it. But if it wasn't free, I wouldn't take it.
4-ups and 6-ups are my specialty. Anything outside of that, forget it.
You just need a 3-up to win the game right now, Brendan. Can't do it, but the 4-up, you got it.
Oh, the shade. That happened at PACA, Meph. Did you know that? That was the shade.
I know you.
That's specifically the number I needed was a 3.
I know. Our game came down to 30 roll, and I
dice
a 2, and Brendan rolls a 1, and loses the game.
And I remember your dice hit the table first, and I saw the 2.
Yeah.
And for a moment, just that brief glimmer of hope, I was like, yes, I am going to place at PACA.
Yeah.
And just won.
Snatched away.
The beauty is if you had rolled the 3, Shaun, he'd have rolled the 4.
I planned it that way.
Yeah, you planned it. You got it.
You out of 4 up. So I'm gonna toss out a 2. Oh, the unintentional shade. So good. Sorry, Brendan. You were saying.
Oh boy. Yeah, and so with that battle line set of, we'll just say 30 to my left, Catacross in the middle, and the Bone Shaper and 20 to my right. I like to see where my opponent has gone at that point, because that's when the 10 horses in 2 units of 5 and the Liege Cavalos go, and I like to center them a lot of times and then just like pick a side, or if I'm feeling real saucy, I'll set them like to an extreme edge, and my opponent will be like, what's going on over here, and commit way too much shit to it, and then I just outmaneuver them and end up where I actually want them. You know, it takes a little bit longer, but
sure.
Screw it, whatever.
You've removed their point
like
commitment
that.
from the game for a turn or 2 more, so it's like you did your job.
Yeah.
Dropping 30 guard to 1 flank would be unnerving as an opponent. Like, oh, how do I deal with those guys?
You guys are going to have to keep throwing shade and maybe talk Perdue
too.
real quick. I gotta.
It forces their deployment off center, which is interesting. So, what did he say?
He said he's got to step away for a little bit, so we can either keep talking about this or talk Purdue football.
Is Illinois gonna play? They had some COVID tests, right?
I think they're gonna play.
Okay, I haven't read the news today. I just saw they had a bunch of positive tests.
Oh, I hadn't seen that yet, but
because they played Wisconsin last week. Wisconsin's like.
Oh, I wonder where the problem came from.
Weird.
So, we'll probably play. It's the whole situation is dumb.
They haven't called it by now.
Yeah, the whole situation is dumb enough where, you know, they're gonna do the NFL thing where they're like, well, we moved the players that tested positive, and we're just gonna ignore the fact that this virus has an incubation period, and you can repeatedly test negative whilst still being able to transmit the virus, you know, asymptomatically. But this football game will be fine, right? Where you have these, you know, large men breathing on each other. Yeah, all game.
No problem.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. Yeah, I don't know. The Michigan State game's here tomorrow, so I'm staying home. I'm not going to campus. No way.
Yeah. I mean, God, Michigan State is just so bad. Like that team has been bad for 3 years, and like no one seems to be willing to have that conversation of the coach. Like it's time for a new coach.
Yeah, well, they got a new coach finally this year. When D'Antonio's gone finally, but he resigned.
Yeah, that's right.
He resigned like the day before signing day and totally screwed up their entire situation of like signing recruits and whatnot. And now they have Mel Tucker.
They still need a new coach.
They still need a new coach, as evidenced by last week when they got driven by who did they play? Rutgers.
It's because they got to have a coach so late that they didn't get a chance at a good coach. They got whatever was left.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, not that anybody wants that job, but
the only time that has worked out was in Oklahoma, where he was replaced by Lincoln Riley, who was already running the important half of a Big Ten team, the offense.
Yeah.
The only half of a Big 12 team.
I saw the injury news for the Bears this weekend. That looks pretty grim. Robinson's probably not going to play. Center Whitehair's out. Somebody else.
It doesn't matter. We don't have an offense. They could put just like 11 people from the stands and they'd score the same number of points.
Probably would. I think the spread is like 6 or 7 at home. So I don't know. How about them Gargants? We can talk about Gargants.
Yeah, we can talk about Gargants. What do you want to talk about Gargants?
I don't know. Somebody's put in the chat. How about them Gargants?
How about them Gargants? Fun. They're fun. I bet they're fun.
I think they're good. They're not going to win 5 games, I don't think, but I think you can pretty confidently win 4, I'd say.
I think that's fair. There's a Stomper Tribe list that our little group chat kicked around that I really quite like. It's
Gargants.
What?
We covered all the football, Meph. You were gone a while. Chat wants to talk about Gargants.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Finish your point.
That was the point.
It's Stomper list, War Stomper General, Kraken Eater, 3-man Gargant, and then 3 1-mans and a command point. I think that one...
Well, Stomper's the one where the little guys get better, right?
Yeah, against hordes, yes.
Yeah. You can run a list with just 1 mega and then a bunch of little dudes in Stomper. That's pretty good. I like Taker with two big ones, Kraken Eater and maybe Gatebreaker, and then the 6 littles, however you want to group them, like 2 3s or 3 a 2 and a 1 or 3 and 3 1s, whatever.
Well, it's if you've got 3 bigs and you only have 3 littles. So
right.
I really like the 2 Kraken.
Lexolopolis with the
like
Twitch Prime for 6 months. That is 6 years in COVID time of subscribing to RantCast here. He says, "Ain't no party like a Gargant's party, because a Gargant party gets shot off turn 2."
I don't know that that's true. That's the narrative online, but I've not seen it actually happen. It's a lot of wounds. The problem is they can't screen, right? So if KO drops on them, they're going to get everything in range. Mm-hmm. Whereas other armies can zone out the short range guns. Gargants just get shot by everything.
The thing I have about it is like you can
just have to spread out. So if they drop, they only get 1 target. You can't cluster up. They drop and shoot everything. You kind of spread out. So if they drop, they don't get to shoot everything. So they have to overkill to kill 1 thing.
So there's a couple things here going on in chat I'd like to address. King of Heretics asked, "Do you see an OBR list with a Gate Smasher?" No.
No.
Nope.
No. I mean, just like the Ivory Host list.
Yeah, I was gonna say
you could write one.
Yeah.
Why don't you do? Yeah, you could do a
make
Gate.
That better.
Yeah, do a Gate Smasher. Or, do that in Ivory Host. There you go. The other thing is something a little bit earlier on.
Maximum narrative.
Someone talking about like orcs and stuff. Yeah, this is my narrative list. Someone talked earlier on about orcs, and I see orcs come back up again here. Orc players have this like, and the orc players are like super loyal to their faction, as loyal as anybody else. As far as I can tell, it's like Seraphon players and orc players are like the 2 most like loyalist in anything. Skaven, yeah, Skaven too. Okay, right on.
I just wanted to bring up Skaven. I don't know.
No, it's fine. This is the Secret Skaven episode after all. Orcs are a very, very good army, but I worry that orc players being loyalists got a little bit into the the jobber mindset because they were bad for so long that they don't realize how great their army is right now.
They're so good.
They're really good.
Like
they're really good.
It's oh man.
They're so fast. I mean,
and they don't have to alpha you. That's just a tool that they have access to.
Right.
And
it's
for sure.
It's every kind of orc of the orc factions is good. There are good Iron Jaws lists, there's good Bone Splitters lists, and there's amazing Big Wow lists.
Oh yeah. OBR could lose to a Bone Splitters list if on the right objective or on the right battle plan, never fighting you. You just won't catch them. They just run in a circle around the table, scoring and pew-pewing you, and you won't. They'll throw little derpy things at you to stop your advance, and like it'll become powder, but it stops the advance. So, and then meanwhile,
and their bravery is just high enough to make the crawlers not super effective, right? They're not like 4 like some Skaven units or Gits, but they're generally 5s. The brutes are 6, aren't they? So,
yeah.
So yeah, they're tough. They're a tough matchup because they want to fight, and they fight, almost as good as we do, I would say.
Yeah.
You'll grind him down, but the issue is you can get pinned in your zone. So depending on the scenario, if they're running you turn 1 with half their army, pin you in your zone, you're down by the time you dig yourself out, which can be a problem.
Yeah, I mean they did get hurt by the. They used to have redundant paint saves. They could get redundant paint saves in a couple ways. Sure. So they lost that, but we lost our resilience in that respect too. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great change, by the way. I do like that rule. There's just much less dice rolling. Like the redundant death saves.
I kind of agree. I wish it. To me, it's clear that the game was designed knowing that it would have these redundant saves in it. Things like a Civic D item, and I feel like the game was tuned knowing it had redundant after saves. Now they need to just go back and look at some armies that maybe should have a little bit better after save and be like, okay, you're on a 5-up now instead of a 6-up. This thing's on a 4-up instead of a 5-up, and they just need to go through and look at those things. Roll fewer dice, sure, but then because that they're not getting the redundant saves anymore, you need to
sure.
For instance, shield tilt, right? On the Empower Nadirite shields.
Yeah.
That should probably be a 4-up now. Because instead of getting, that.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
Yeah. So
and there are many artifacts, like you said, that just aren't playable now. Like Suspicious Stone, someone put in the chat, is now unplayable. Some Diadem is unplayable.
Mm-hmm.
It literally does nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that there's just some stuff in there that they need to now compensate. But it was a great change. It was a fantastic change. Go all the way. Witch Elves shouldn't have the rerollable save either. Just the whole point is to move away from the extra.
Yeah, that's the thing, is things that give you a rerollable save versus rolling an extra save, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Witch Elf thing is tough.
No, I ultimately don't mind it because there's more precedent for for instance, for an armor save, you re-rolling an armor save than you having a second armor save, right? So
sure.
There feels to be a precedent for re-rolling the extra save than there would be for having an extra save. So I get that,
right?
But I feel you just need to tear the Band-Aid all the way off and
Mm-hmm.
But again, you could redesign it. Instead of it being a 5-up re-rollable, it's a 4-up now. You can do that. That's clean it up. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So because I agree with the change, 100%. I don't want to get added about it. Later.
Yeah, your Terrorgeist with Vitality on Mystical Terrain was always fun.
Yes, it was. Odd that the Death Armies feels like they got hit the hardest. This is where I usually talk about spicy command traits that anyone's using. We're not using the command traits for the most part. There's no hidden.
No.
You're running Mortis Praetorians, or you're running in a Boneclave, so that kind of gets rid of these.
Yeah.
So command traits is basically a blank page. Yeah, there's some cool cheeky stuff in there, but it's
the one thing that did the loss from going from Petrifex to Praetorians is the artifact and trait in Petrifex are really good. You put those on a leash, all of a sudden he's 9 wounds, ignoring the first wound every phase. That's amazing. And the ones that Praetorians are just they don't do anything,
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You're stuck with. They are. Get them.
The Ren 3 blade is fine.
On your Bone Shaper.
Sure, if you want.
Yeah.
That's where mine always ends up. I only have 2 heroes. There you go.
Yeah. But I will talk about the artifacts because we do sometimes often run a battalion to get that sort of second artifact. And just real quick, so Relics of the Cavaloi, these are going to be the ones of the Cavalos. I think we're all in agreement which artifact this is. Shaun?
Helm of the Ordained is amazing.
Yeah, Helm of the Ordained, it's almost... if you're getting that...
Plus 1 to hit, Holy 12, it's just amazing. On a model that moves, 10 inches minimum, he just follows your stuff around and gets up plus 1 to hit, which, if you have Catacross, it's a bit redundant, but if you're playing a battalion and getting a second Cavalos in there, you probably don't have Catacross. So having that plus 1 to hit, following your stuff around is really, really useful. And you can get it in 2 ways, right? You can get it on that artifact and also the Endless Spell for plus 1 to hit. So there are multiple ways in the army to get it hitting on 2s, which is nice because we went on 4s because we were skeletons.
And importantly, it is to hit rolls for attacks made, not melee attacks.
Correct.
So
the colors hit on 2s anyway.
They're always 2s? It's 2s and 2s and 3s.
Yeah. 2s and 3s.
Yep.
That's just
Brendan still can't figure out how to hit with them.
Yeah, I know.
It's the wound roll I always miss, by the way.
My pick is the Mind Blade, because who doesn't love stealing a photo?
You had to dig your book out to find it. It must be your favorite.
I wanted to use the right name for it, Shaun.
Okay. All right, Fluff Master. Let's hear what it does.
Oh, you pick a shimmering blade that emits a thin scream when it is drawn. The Mind Blade can sever the intellect from those whose flesh it cuts. Pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with that weapon that targets a hero is 6, your opponent loses 1 command point to a minimum of 0, and that hero cannot use command abilities for the rest of the battle.
Nice. That's spicy.
It's good.
Yeah, it's spicy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's spicy.
Just run that into Nagash. Take away his command ability.
So sad.
If you've made it to Nagash.
Or Catacross, or the enemy Catacross.
Oh.
Oh no!
That'd be savage. That'd be savage.
Yeah. So
Come here, let me hit you with my sword.
Is this cubic shenanigans? This is kind of cubic shenanigans. That is Brendan from the Cubic Shenanigans podcast.
Oh.
Yeah. If we didn't
if you haven't listened to me enough.
Yeah. If you haven't heard enough of his spicy takes about how you guys need to get good at the game of Age of Sigmar, and I'm kidding. He also talks about Perdue. Tools of the Bone Shaper. So these are for
we covered that already.
Yeah. All right. So for the Mortise and Bone Shaper, I think most of ours. Actually, no. You might have a different take, Shaun. I do like the key personally.
I mean, the key's fine. I just don't get you take these. I don't know. I don't really find any of them. I guess if I had to pick one, I would take the key, but the other ones are kind of meh, right?
Hmm.
I mean, the +1 to your death save is okay, I suppose, but it's only within an inch, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can grant that the save on a 5-up once per turn to you and the one. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Load of Saturation.
Load of Saturation.
If you know you're going to like totally home base a 20 block of Mortec Guard, right? Like you're just like, this is all we're doing. It's probably a horse apiece.
Plus, it gives you. It's kind of a second copy of the shield buff, right? Because if you can do that to one unit, shield buff another unit, then you have 2 units that are getting 5-ups against mortals, which could be handy.
Right. I like the key myself. Brendan.
Also the key.
Yeah. So the key, for those of you, we already touched on it. You were on a 4-up. You can pick 2 units within 6 to heal. Just 3.
Or you can double down
on healing the same unit. So. Mortise and Soul Mason. This is where I think some secret heat is.
I think they're all 3 good. I think they're all good.
Yeah. So this is where I think the secret heat is. I love the cartouche. So this is add 1 to wound rolls. Attacks made with melee weapons, specifically by friendly death units, wholly within 9. If the
wholly 9 is tough, but getting that down to 3s is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Something on 4s is brutal.
Yeah.
Plus
Brendan?
2 wounds is always nice, and +2 casting is also good. I mean, they're all good.
Yeah, these are all good. Yeah, these are good.
I really like the. Yep, sorry. I really like the +2 casting because that guy is kicking out so many spells.
That spell's amazing.
That the re-rolling hit rolls of 1, which I need, to be able to use my Mortec crawlers effectively. So important.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
So important.
I mean, it adds 2. It will break eventually, right? Which is a bit of a feels bad, but
yeah, it breaks on a hard 8, which is it'll happen.
Unmodified 10 up.
No, it breaks on 10.
Oh, you're right. A hard 10. Okay, so yeah. I don't remember roll those when I cast.
And no one takes Soul Reapers, but if you do, it's a Lumen Scythe.
I've never even read those before. What do they do?
Lumen Scythe subtracts 1. It subtracts 1 to hit rolls that target the melee spellcaster that is the Soul Reaper, and in addition, that the Soul Reaper has a +1 to cast its spell or whatever. Okay. And by the way, the spell it's casting is probably the +1 hit endless spell. No, it's probably casting the +1 spell because it's never going to cast a spell again. It's going to throw it out there for somebody and buff them, and then never try to cast again because it's garbage.
Womp womp.
Yeah, so I think that's it. Spell lores, I don't think we really need to touch on those. They have a really strong spell lore, but you get that in a full battle tome review. Usually you're empowering your Nadirite blades, and then from there, you've got some other stuff. I will say, and maybe and I'll get your input here, that Death is traditionally viewed, I think, as one of the good spellcasting armies out there. Right? Like, in the sort of general sense, like, Death tends to be one of the big four. You know, you got your Lizard Men.
They're above average, just like as baseline.
Yeah. But Ossiarch Bonereapers don't feel like a spellcasting army to me. What are your guys' takes?
I think you can. I think if you take Arcan, you can definitely make the list feel casting dominant in most games. You know, obviously you're going to roll up against like Croak and be like, oh, my apologies. I took this useless model. I'm sorry. Or like Tekos, who's just like, and now you die. Like,
I'm sorry. Soul Reaper is not useless in that context. He has an attack profile.
Hey, there he is.
He's still in the box. I
think it's the one model I don't own from the range. So
I own the whole range. Get at me. I own multiples of everything.
I should go buy one, I suppose.
Yeah,
you own multiple Soul Reapers?
No. Yes.
Okay.
Cool
yes.
You do?
Yeah, no, I do, because one is my my Anvil of Apotheosis character, and one is going to be made for the Soulbound game I run on Fridays. Myriad is the name of the like random robot guy that's joined the party that is a Soul Reaper. So I'm gonna make the model of him in the party. So I have two for an AOA.
He's an amazing model.
It's such a sweet model. I also found out recently, because I actually looked at the model for an extended period of time, he is floating off the ground. So they like did that thing where they like hid the fact that he's like floating because his cape is the thing that touches the ground, and he himself is levitating. So it's actually a really sick ass model. I just wish the unit was good, like the War Scroll. But
yeah, playtesters work on that.
Yeah, it's not his fault. He is a melee fighter hero. They just don't, unless you're exactly like a Hag Queen or an Aether Chemist or like some of those like niche. Well, even Aether Chemist is not like a melee hero fighter, but it's just like unless you're like specifically made to be a buff piece, the melee fighty things just tend not to be super great. It's just the reality.
Yeah, the issue is the army is typically so strapped for points. You can to have a wizard that they can't heal my guys. Like his spells, man, like it doesn't really do enough for the same points. He's 10 points cheaper, right? Like it's just not.
10. Yeah, and you usually have like 40 points left over in Ossiarch Bonereapers lists with nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So like you can afford the Soul Mason, or you can afford, because you can't even buy like, even if you're like, oh, if I can trim 10 points, I can get a bonus command point. It doesn't do anything for you.
You always got 10 points. Right. There's not a list without one.
Yeah. Yeah, so like you're usually like looking at like there's just no reason to run it as opposed to the Bone Shaper, or go all the way up to a Soul Mason if you're gonna like try to like get that sort of Gatling gun effect of rerolling ones to hit through.
I do like him a lot. It's just he doesn't heal. I always end up with the Shaper just for the healing.
It's true.
But I do like the Mason a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. No, that's respectable. Yeah, so that's that's those Mortis Praetorians. I think people know why we think it's great. It lies in Catacross's War Scroll, his command ability that adds the +1 to save, 2 Mortis Praetorians, so you kind of get back that what is missing now from Petrifex Elite. I will say in a general sense, it feels like it's in the wrong place. Like I feel like the army that was sold, the subfaction that's sold to me as like the made from dinosaur bones, the hardiest, tankiest army, should maybe be Petrifex Elite still, but like honestly, I'm over that, and not just because I was paid money to be over that. Maybe the Mortis Praetorian stuff saves better than the Petrifex Elite because they're just better trained. Like
they're more skilled, right? That's the fluff, right?
Right. Yeah, they're more skilled. Yeah. So Petrifex Elite, they're made out of dinosaur bone. That just means that they have a better rend.
They hit harder.
Because they hit harder. Yeah, it's called bludgeon, right? So,
bludgeon.
Yeah, so I'm kind of over that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I agree. I think it's all about Catacross, and the having his ability just be +1 to save is amazing, right? You can shooting too, so that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
For the army.
Yeah. The one thing I will ask is, have you gotten much use out of Counter-Strike command ability? Either of you, which is when you get
spend it,
charged?
yeah. I spend it typically in the bottom of a round. Like, I have extra points left over. I don't typically burn it if my opponent's going top of the round, just because you don't typically need. You hit on 2s anyway, so it's kind of just a gravy to reroll those 1s. I'd say use it on the knights sometimes because the horses can get the rerolls to hit, but if they get charged by something. But yeah, it's useful.
Yeah, I second that. The other time where it's really nice is if your opponent has some sort of like negative to hit, and you're back to your base 3, or for some reason if you're up to 4, because it's just straight rerolls. It's not fails or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's good versus Ren.
Really,
or sorry, misses. Yeah. Sorry, not misses.
Insurance. It's insurance. Yeah.
Yeah, rerolls to hit. So if they got that penalty or whatever's going on,
it's nice. It's a bonus. The go-to remains the plus attacks from your various keyword lieges, your shield walls on your Mortec, things of that nature. This is one of those things that helps you accelerate the pace of the kill.
And Catacross is chosen.
Your opponent pay for attacking.
Yeah, command traits were again. You're not really getting this command trait because Catacross is your general. If you're in Mortis Praetorian, so you're not getting that trait at all. And Artificer's Blade. It sucks that rend is put on your Bone Shaper, but it's not bad on the leash. If you get a leash Cavalier,
right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
Petrifex Elite. Again, I put these both at the top of my rankings. I wanted to lie to people and tell everyone that Petrifex Elite is bad now, to like throw them off its scent, so that I could play it selfishly and like still enjoy it. But the rend is good. Bludgeon is just good. Spend a command, our command point, our Relentless Discipline, and rend you. So when we covered all of these, the only one we didn't mention was Crematorians.
Clearly OP. Just S tier.
The best
S-tier
one.
nonsense.
Yeah.
No one plays it because they're too afraid that if they do play it, that they'll be banned from tournaments.
They won't get any sports votes.
Yeah, I mean, it's never been a problem for me not getting any sports votes, so, whatever. But
I don't know. I disagree. I don't think they're very good.
How dare you?
I think they're funny and gimmicky, but I don't really do much. Kick it back a few mornings here and there, but
I think being
shouldn't be dying. I don't know. The army is so elite. You don't want your stuff to die. Like having a buff when having a bonus when my things die seems incongruous with what the army should be doing.
This is my take. If you put this in Legions of Nagash, take this.
Yeah. It's the best thing in the world.
Isn't it?
Unbelievable.
Right? Put this in Legions of Nagash, where I have 6 up save, sometimes nil save value unit, like skeletons, just exploding and regenning on grave sites and stuff, and I just have them screaming across the table in Death March, just like... the best
Is it a
thing.
5+ that they bounce the Mortal's Honor? It's a 5, right?
Yeah, I think it's 5s. Here, let me get my book here. Everyone's making fun of me for.
Yeah, it's a 5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and heroes go on 4s? Yeah,
and
heroes and monsters go on 4s.
Right?
Yeah, yep.
Ignore cover. It's like...
Meh.
Close.
You ignore cover, okay.
It's all about the explosion.
Yeah.
Ignoring cover's not bad, but it is super situational.
It's still situational.
I mean, it's a situational +1 to hit is really what's going on there. So, like, that's not horrible. It's just, it's situational.
The one game I played with these, I had like 2 30 bricks backed up by a harvester each. Like, they did cool things, but I felt like I was these like 2 fixed points in space that my opponent was just like, okay, like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, like to use the ability, I have to come chase you, which is counterintuitive because you want them hitting you because then you have the ability of the harvester. But if you're chasing after them, the harvester can't keep up, or you're putting him in danger, and then the harvester dies.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, it's incongruous.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah, you're 100% right. Put this in Legions of Nagash. It's... like, the Legion of Nagash players having the most fun that anyone could possibly have. They even have double pile-ins to maximize the ability to get because within 3 inches of the explode, so you can even maximize getting in your coverage to explode instead of people just playing around your 3-inch explode. So you can Van Hells. Like now you've got like Graveguard that are just like screaming and like they're murdering you with exploding 6s, and then when they die,
that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just modeling wise, that'd look great. That'd be so fantastic.
You're a Diablo Necromancer with corpse explosion. Like, isn't that so? Like, GW, I know you watch RantCast. You know, so
we do know that actually.
Yeah. So GW, take this page, and somehow in the Legions of Nagash 2.0 or the inevitable FAQ or whatever's going to happen with Legion of Nagash in the future, because I think something should maybe it's in the pipelines. Maybe it's getting the Cities of Sigmar effect. I don't know. Just find a way to get this in that book, okay? Like that's Crematorians is fine here. Some people are going to play it. They're going to be fluffy. It's just anathema to how the army plays. So it doesn't feel right. But put it in Legions of Nagash. They would have so much fun with this. Like that is where people will get mad at the whole army. By the way. And if people are getting mad at the army, you have done something right.
Oh man, and that's when you bust out those 180 zombie armies and just go.
Yeah, with you push them up and like if you don't like it, then just shoot it. Like
you've got the casino chip pusher and just.
Yeah, you're not even like
about this.
Yeah, you're just like you're leaning back and you're pushing it across the table. Oh man, that's
I think that's a little more than 5 inches. What are you doing about it? Nothing. That's what you're doing about it. Can we see why I don't get sportsmanship scores?
I think we already
Is it abundantly clear at this point?
Yeah.
Yep. So I think we've for the most part covered the army. Any general tips and tricks you want to give people for playing this army? Any general points of inspiration? Hey, if you're thinking about getting into Ossiarch Bonereapers, why should you play it? Anything like that, Shaun?
It's a great army. It's a fun army. It's an elite army, which is nice. So if you want to play death and don't want to paint 200 skeletons, you can paint 50 instead. And I think it's unique because it's death with the shooting phase, which some people choose not to use. I mean, I don't know why you would do that, but some people choose not to use the shooting phase.
I feel caught halfway between both of you. Like death and shooting phase feels weird to me. Like when I have a breath attack with a dragon or something, like I just forget it most of the time when I'm playing death because I'm like, the shooting phase is something we don't get to do.
But
and then I'm like,
no, the breath attacks is where you win events. Because you're like,
exactly.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
6 damage. And your opponent goes, oh, yeah, that's right. And then that's it. It's all over.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off, man. Continue.
No, yeah, that's it. It's a cool army, and I like that it plays in every phase. Right? So you've got good movement with the horses. You got the range with the catapults. You got a really awesome model who's a great buff piece for the army in Catacross. So it's a fun modeling army, fun painting army. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
I mean, Catacross is, and maybe I'm a homer here, maybe I'm a stan, whatever your vernacular. Catacross is the greatest model in Age of Sigmar. You can at me at MR_MEPH. It's the greatest model in this game. It's amazing. It is a diorama. It has redefined what it means to even be a model in our game. It's spectacular. You want to play with it. This army plays with it, and he, unlike, I don't want to keep panning like Alariel or something like that, because, but like, unlike, something like an Alariel or even like a Nagash right now, where you're like, like I want to play with it, but, like.
Well, I mean, you don't even have to go very far. Like Lady Olinder and Nighthaunt, Kairos Fateweaver and Tzeentch. There are ways to play around Archaon in Slaves to Darkness, but
there's some good Archaon builds, but for the most part, that's not the way, right? Like,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and Catacross, I think, feels like the way to play this army, especially with the change to Petrifex.
At minimum, it's a meaningful way. It's
a very, very strong way.
It's a way where you feel like you are using a faction leader the way that the faction leader is described to you in the book as being played.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think the only other, I mean, Nagash, when his points were a bit less, had that feel. Marathi has that feel to me in Daughters of Cain, where she's just like, she costs a lot, but she's really unique.
Such a
really
bully.
Good.
Yeah.
The army. But yeah, there's not many like centerpiece type characters that kind of do that, and Catacross is the boss.
I think it's a success when that lands. For me, I think that's a success. I think that should be a, even Techless right now is debatable in LRL. Because like you really are on the Techless plan in an army that is very, very light on wounds already, and you're even lighter still.
It's similar to OBR, right? In terms of, do you like, you feel that 600 points when you you click on Techless in Scroll Builder, because you run out of points real quick in that army, same with OBR.
Yeah. So I think Techless feels like less the correct decision than Catacross does to me. And by correct, I don't mean like the only way. I don't mean auto include. Sure. I just mean like when you click Catacross, you're like, you crack the knuckles. You're like, yep, this is what we're doing now. You know. Sorry. Yeah.
That's it. Buy Catacross, push them to the board, and have fun. That's the
pitch.
That's Shaun's advice.
Yeah, that's Shaun's. Brendan.
And buy two crawlers.
So
Catacross and 2 crawlers. You heard it here first. First, it's a year after the army.
So my advice is a little bit different. I recommend Bonereapers as somebody's second, or I don't recommend them as your first army. If you're looking to get into Age of Sigmar, not that I don't want you to buy it, I think you're going to be very frustrated trying to learn the game of Age of Sigmar playing this army. If you have strong fundamentals that you have, like, you're a longtime 40k player, this will probably be fine. If you are new to wargames, I think this army can be so grossly unforgiving in ways that you won't see or understand until you have played a huge number of games. And it can be extremely off-putting to play with something that isn't like totally being able to be explained to you. Something I actually encountered at one of our local stores was pre-apocalypse. I went in and there were these 2 guys who I hadn't met before, and they were playing this game, and they had both just gotten in the hobby, and one of them was playing Bonereapers, and the other one was playing, I want to say Stormcast. And like his opponent wasn't able to like help him learn the rules, because Bonereapers they look like they operate the same as everything else, but there are some key fundamentals that make them so different from everything else that it's a book playing Sigmar, but it doesn't play Sigmar the same way. Mm-hmm. So my piece of advice is hold off until you feel really comfortable playing Age of Sigmar. You have a good understanding of all of the phases and what it's supposed to do, and then this is an extra set of rules that sits on top of it.
Yeah.
My advice.
No, I like that. Jump. Like if you're already on like LON plan, you're kind of learning. Even, Bravery 10 can really actually start to feel like you're coddled a little bit. But there's a ton of Bravery 10 armies in the game. Like there really are. Demons. That's basically a quarter of the armies out there. Undead. So there's a lot of Bravery 10. So like, yeah, okay, cool. Go on.
If you want to stay in the death lane, play Flesh Eater Courts before you play Bonereapers.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a little bit more affordable. So if you really don't like it, you're not too deep financially into this.
Forgiving hobby-wise.
Yeah, and Flesh Eater Courts, for the most part, largely fundamentally plays the game of Sigmar. It has a hero phase where you're going to do stuff. The movement phase is super important, and that's the best skill you have to have in playing Bonereapers is movement, in my opinion. You have a little bit of shooting. In Flesh Eater Courts, it's less. It's definitely less, but that's okay. Shooting doesn't work too differently than most of your other phases. It wants to be charging. You want to be charging. fighting is the single most important phase of Flesh Eater Courts. Yes, same over here. Your combat phase is the most important thing. You're still Bravery 10. The only difference is you're going to be a little bit softer. That's okay. So if you want to stay in that lane, if you want to stay in death and move into it, great. My always, at this point, beginner recommendation army is Orc War Clans, where you can move through Iron Jaws and then Bone Splitters and into Big Wa and be a thoroughly competent player at the end of it. Yeah. And you have 2, 3 armies out of it. But you've learned the entire game of Age of Sigmar playing War Clan. That's
actually fantastic advice. That's amazing advice. Someone should clip that shit. Real quick, popping off here in chat. Tomb King Tristan brought down the ban hammer, and then immediately redeemed 1,000 RDP to remind y'all that Chat Gang ain't nothing to fuck with. And then I see Rational Nihilist redeemed it twice. Maybe to get my attention to remind you that Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with, so thank you so much. Kylie Onis reminding everyone that Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with and always charge first. Always be charging.
ABC, always be charging.
Yep, and Heavy D6 redeemed 1,000 to remind y'all Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with. And then the RDP train keeps rolling with Dave G-Dad dropping 1,000, reminding y'all that Chat Gang ain't nothing to fuck with. So, thank you so much for that. Gosh darn it! 2,000 more spent. Y'all know it. This is going. If Brendan, if people want to hear more of your awesome takes on death or more of your expertise, where can they find you, man?
They can find me on Twitter at hobby_bear, where they can listen, rate, and subscribe, download, delete, re-download, resubscribe, re-rate, re-download. The Cubic Shenanigans podcast. It's a Warhammer podcast. Who talks in 40K, and by we I mean Dan, and then I sit there and nod yes. Sometimes it's primarily an Age of Sigmar podcast. We just recorded the Sons of Behemoth episode on Wednesday, so that'll probably be out on the 1st, if I had to guess. So we've been doing pretty all right recently, and it's a fine show. It's okay.
Yeah, they gave away 2,900 points of Bonereapers for our mental health charity marathon back in July, which feels like ages ago. So Cubic Shenanigans is legit. I can't thank you enough, man, for that. Thank you for being on tonight. So go check out Cubic Shenanigans. It's the least you can do. Heavy D6, I see you going, the biggest reason to play Bonereapers is redeems 1,000 RDP, checking ain't none to fuck with. And then if folks want some of your expertise or to learn to stay away from Detroit because the RB monsters, how can they look you up, Shaun?
You can get me on Twitter. I am at Nuke Doctor, same as my Discord tag here. So hit me up on Twitter. I'm happy to chat Warhammer anytime.
Happy to chat. Thank you for being on.
And you and Jake are definitely starting the Detroit podcast, right? That's something that's super definitely happening.
Jake is starting it. He's not here to defend himself.
If you need a first pair of guests or a first guest, I'd be more than happy to come on. And this is actually technically your first official RantCast. You were on the Rantathon, but
yeah, that was not a RantCast, so I think so.
Yeah. So thank you for officially being on now. That was awesome.
It's been my pleasure.
The doctor block was my favorite block, by the way. I know I'm not supposed to pick a favorite as a parent of a thing, but I really loved the doctor's block because I thought that was a great showcase of a total love of Warhammer. We had no
agenda. We just talked Warhammer for 2 hours.
Yeah, so that was fun. So if you didn't watch all 28 hours of a charity stream that happened several months ago, at least go watch the doctor's block on YouTube. Yeah. Hey, Meph, did you remember to submit to the Black Library? No, I didn't. I didn't get my horror story in. My horror story was actually, I'll tell you about it later. But I'm going to let these gentlemen get out of here. It's been a long day for everyone concerned. I've got a watch party to run over on Discord with spooky movies. We're gonna finish off the Mephtober marathon tonight, sort of offline, just with friends and family type thing. So again, thank you both for being on. It was awesome to talk Ossiarch Bonereapers with two of the best in the game. So it has been a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Meph.
Yep.
Night all.
And good night, chat gang. Remember, you're the reason we do this thing. Drink your milk, pay your taxes. We'll see you later.